Honored to introduce our keynote speakers at this point, Dr. Pamela Weibel and Robert Simon. Dr. Weibel, yes, let's go ahead and clap for them. If I had an honorary one, I would. Dr. Weibel speaks widely on healthcare delivery and is the best-selling author of Physician Suicide Letters Answered. When not treating patients, Dr. Weibel devotes herself to medical student and physician suicide prevention. An inspiring leader and educator of the next generation of physicians, Dr. Weibel has been named one of the 2015 Women Leaders in Medicine, and TEDMed calls her the physician's guardian angel. Robin Simon is a two-time Emmy Award-winning filmmaker specializing in documentaries and television series. Her most recent film, Do No Harm, focuses on the toxic culture of medicine and the effect on doctors, medical students, and their families. We're also privileged to have with us today John and Michelle Deal, who will share their personal story of their son Kevin, a promising medical student who was lost to suicide. Please join me in welcoming, with much emotion, Dr. Weibel, Robin Simon, and the Deals to the stage.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. It's an honor. This is actually the first time the film has been shown outside of MD Anderson. I took a little pit stop on the way over from LA to screen it, when it was fascinating because it was a combination of administrators, faculty, and residents. And after the screening, people were like in shock. I mean, the administrators were there to defend what they were doing, or trying to do. Some of the faculty that were concerned about wellness were there to say, you know, this is just like lip service. And the residents were kind of scared about, you know, what was happening and if they had any power to change anything. But this film, we hope, is a conversation starter. It's about the problem, and we need to come up with solutions together because it's complex. How many of you saw the film last night? What'd you think? Good? Awesome. It's funny, I was watching the SIM operation here earlier, and it just reminded me, I'm not a doctor, maybe I hope an honorary one after spending 4 years, like med school. But if you ever go out to dinner with a group of physicians, things can get very strange. We're eating, and all of a sudden, many times over the past 4 years, the conversation will turn to like their latest surgery with great detail. Oh, we made this incision, and there was this big mass there, and he cut, and I was looking at blood splurting, and I'm looking at my food, and it's like, this meal is over. And they were like, it was nothing. So it's really an honor, you know, to be able to eat and talk like that. You guys are brilliant. But just keep that in mind when you're in mixed company, I actually started this journey 4 years ago in 2014. Someone had sent me an op-ed story from the New York Times about these two young doctors who jumped from the roofs of their hospitals. Brilliant, young I guess they were residents at the time. They had their whole lives ahead of them. They had gone through so much to get to where they were, and they jumped right off the ledge. I just couldn't understand it. So I started to look into the reasons why the competition, the bullying, the hazing, the pimping, the sleep deprivation, the lack of coping skills that you're given. It's like a time bomb waiting to go off. So let me show you this trailer, and then we can talk a little bit about the reality of what's happening, and then let's talk about you and how we can all make a difference together. So let's roll that.
Hi, Pamela. We just had another doctor jump and commit suicide from Mount Sinai. And they're just covering it up. This keeps happening.
If we had this number of patients jumping from hospital rooftops, there would be an investigation. Why are we not taking this seriously when these are doctors and medical students?
We're going to be looking at two things, the posture on the wall.
Everybody understands that medical school is very demanding. Those demands have a profoundly toxic effect.
Doctors have felt that they need to start running faster, seeing more and more patients.
All of this pressure happens, and there's no margin for error.
You take care of people who die. It like erodes your spirit.
Workload, isolation, sleep deprivation. It is a time bomb.
It really is almost like tunnel vision. The only way that I logically was thinking at that time was
To end it all.
To end it all.
Break down in my room every night. I never wanted to die. I just wanted to stop suffering.
People believe in you because you are perfect. Death sometimes feels like a safer option than having that mask uncovered.
The biggest risk is patient safety.
Medical errors are now the third largest cause of death behind heart disease and cancer.
As many as 250,000 people die each year.
If you have somebody that is not functional either mentally or physically, then you can't have good quality care.
I've seen a resident be in a surgery, falls asleep standing up.
You use the analogy of two large airplanes a day going down. Is it 500 people a day dying, 1,000 people? We don't know, but it's a lot of people. So my first question is, how come this story is not on the front pages of the papers every single day?
Because this is so taboo religiously, culturally, and within medicine, it's just completely covered up.
Did they talk to you guys all about it, like about what happened, or it's just you didn't show up one day and everyone's like, okay, something happened. Yeah.
If a third of them are suffering from clinical depression, that should be known, that should be exposed.
Our son Kevin was a fourth-year medical student who took his life on April 23rd, 2015. I realize this has been a problem for decades and nothing's been done about it.
We are not ashamed, and we're going to do anything we can to keep others from having to go through this, because I'm going to tell you, it's hard.
Cultures and institutions don't change because we ask them to change. They change when they're forced to change.
I've read the petition, and we're already doing what they're asking.
I think if you were to really take on physician suicide with the seriousness that it needs to be investigated, it would take our entire medical profession down to its knees, and we would have to rebuild from the bottom up.
Not to scare you, but it's still a noble calling, but it's time for change. This has been a hidden epidemic for decades. Nothing's been done about it, but I think with the advent of social media, I think now is the time that we can change because we can all be in touch. It's interesting, you know, firemen and policemen, they function as teams. And when things go wrong, they have each other to support each other. But physicians, for some reason, function like islands. So they don't tend to lean on each other. You know, weakness is frowned upon. It's interesting, my uncle was a surgeon for 30, 40 years, And before he passed away last year, I showed him 20 minutes of the film, and he said, if you do anything in this film, he said, talk about that we're not given any skills to cope with grief. It's like PTSD when you see people die every day, every week, even every month. And that has to affect you. In the medical profession, you're not given any skills. And so he said to me, he came up with his own ways of coping. And I asked, well, what is it? What did you do? And he wouldn't share with me, as if it was this weakness that he had to cover up, and it was his own private way, and he couldn't bring himself to talk about it. So, but he knew that it had to change. He wished he had some kind of peer group that he could discuss, like firemen do and like policemen do. He wanted that, but it would have been a sign of weakness. So that has to change. This whole stigma that, of mental illness or just reaching out for help has to change. There is a fear that it could jeopardize your career if you reach out for help. That has to change. If you see people die every day or every week, it has to affect you. You must be able to express it in some way. Doctors have the highest rate of suicide among all professions, almost twice the rate of the general population. The burnout rate is more than 50% in many specialties. At the top of the list, emergency medicine, trauma, anesthesiology, over 60%. And this is really a public health crisis, because as you saw in the trailer, when doctors aren't functioning at their best, patients can't be getting quality care. So you really owe it to your patients, too, to give them the best care. So how do we change this? Well, one thing that is very disturbing, that in other professions and even in school, bullying is not allowed. But in medicine, it persists. And as Pamela says, it's the wounded leading the wounded. So that cycle of abuse has to stop, and it can stop with you guys. If you see bullying going on, hazing, even pimping, everyone know what pimping is? Put in my place. We'll see the film, and if you don't know what it is, because you're going to experience it in med school and beyond. So these are things that can stop with your generation, which is why we're so excited to show this film here. Getting together as peers, supporting each other, that's what's going to make the difference. And I was talking to my son last night about, how do you change when you're fearing for your job, when you're worried after all the money that you've spent that you could be fired if you speak out, as many people have. Well, look what's happening in Parkland, in Florida. They are getting together and saying enough is enough, and they're standing shoulder to shoulder and forcing change. And if that's what has to happen, we can make that happen. We can use this film as a catalyst for change. But it has to start with you guys coming together, acknowledging that you're human, bringing the humanity back to medicine for your sakes as well as the sake of your patients, so we can save the healthcare system that we all love. So I want to pass the baton over to Pamela, and I know we're going to be doing Q&A afterwards. So the time for change is now, and it starts with you. So please join me. And go to the website. If you'd like to have this film screened at your school or at your medical institution, we have a screening tab on the website, and someone from my team will get in touch with you. So thank you very much.
All right, I'm a little sleep deprived. I was in this room till 1 in the morning, hanging out with medical students. It was awesome after the film last night. So, yeah, I went into medicine, probably like a lot of you, thinking that I was going to go in and just one-on-one sort of help individual patients. I had really no idea that what I was going to end up doing is helping the entire medical system heal. And I think I'd like to open your minds to the idea of sort of what the gentleman was presenting to you of like healthcare plus or, physician plus. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but, I want you to look at this globally. You can do so much more than helping the one individual in front of you. You can actually heal entire groups of people at once. You can heal entire healthcare systems and even into the international realm. And the way that you do that is by using your voice and your power and your ability to heal, which is a God-given ability that you were born with. If you are in this room, you are a healer. You might not be like the type of specialty that you think you're going for. You might be some other type of healer. I want you to keep an open mind, like our Carmen explained to you earlier, is that, in the early stages of feeling called to be a healer, sometimes it's confusing to know which direction to go. You can go in so many directions right now. I want you to keep an open mind, because I had no idea I was going to end up being like a physician suicide expert and running a suicide hotline for doctors, but this comes to you when you're in a state of receptive silence. And so I think I want you to spend some time with yourself every week just listening to what it is that you feel called to do, that the world is calling you for. And I want to share with you the two most important moments of my life, and I want you to be on the lookout for when some of these most important moments of your life might happen. One of them might happen today, okay? So besides being born, which was actually, an important part of my life, the most important parts of my life, the two moments that changed me the most, were October 28th, 2012 at 3 p.m. and January 26th, 2018 at 6 p.m. And I'm going to tell you what happened. On October 28, 2012, I was sitting in the second row of a memorial service for the third physician that we lost to suicide in my small, beautiful town where there's a farmer's market on every corner and everyone's smiling and hugging you. So I live in a beautiful place. Why would there be 3 physician suicides in a small town in Oregon within a year and a half? Well, everyone kept asking why, but nobody said suicide out loud at the funeral, which I thought was very odd, because how are we going to discover the solution to a problem that nobody will say out loud? I started sitting there focusing on, why? Why is this happening? I'm one of those people that I get obsessed on the question why, and I can't let it go, which I think is the sign of a really good scientist who's interested in solving any kind of a problem. You get stuck on why, you can't sleep. I started counting on my hands how many physicians I knew that had died by suicide or very suspicious circumstances at a very young age. Within a few minutes, I had counted 10, right? And I'm a young physician just starting. I left this memorial service early because I was teaching a physician retreat that evening, which is a business course I teach for medical students and physicians who want to launch independent practices. This retreat had nothing to do with mental health. I opened the retreat with, how many of you have lost a colleague to suicide? And everyone's hand was raised, every single hand in the room. Then I asked, well, how many of you have considered suicide yourself? And every single hand was up except for one female nurse practitioner. I'm a scientist. I don't need any more proof than that this is a problem. I've spent the entire waking moments of my life, every moment since October 28th, 2012 at 3 p.m., completely dedicated to this topic. Okay? I started blogging. I started speaking. I could hardly stop speaking about this. My entire house is like a shrine with pictures of dead doctors everywhere. I mean, this is like my life's purpose, I guess. I started running people started contacting me, families who lost children to suicide in medical school. I started running a hotline, a hotline for physicians who are suicidal and medical students who are suicidal. They keep calling me. I call them back, and we're on the phone for hours, at no charge. I just started doing this. So this is what's going on for me for the last 5 years. And then, I think it just accelerated because I'm open to solving a problem that is not my problem to really solve. It was just the universe is asking me to participate in this. I'm listening, so I continue doing the work. Now, it accelerated to the point where on January 18th of this year, you may remember, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mount Sinai, they lost the third physician to suicide in just like less than 2 years. 3 women stepped off the roofs of buildings at Mount Sinai. And the last one was named Dilshad Juman, and she died on the 18th. Soon after she died, I got 3 emails. One from an administrator at Mount Sinai, one from a resident who lived in the building where she died, stepping off the 33rd floor, the roof of the building, and another from a wife of a resident. They all demanded that I come to New York and do something, investigate the hospitals, help us, we're stuck in this building. So like, I just got on a plane and flew to New York to lead a woman's eulogy, a vigil, and her memorial service. I don't even know this doctor. And I will tell you, because I led a retreat for medical students recently, and at the retreat, a medical student asked me, what was the proudest moment of your life? The proudest moment of my life is showing up and leading a memorial service for a woman who would otherwise be forgotten, who stepped off a roof in New York City, and that is really the proudest moment of my life, that I stepped forward to honor a beautiful physician colleague of mine who died in desperation and hopelessness. And so what I want, the message that I have for you today is follow my lead. When it comes to saving lives and honoring and helping your brothers and sisters in medicine, just act, don't ask. Don't ask permission. Don't ask, do I have permission to go to New York and help lead a woman's memorial service? Just do it. When someone is suffering in your class, don't ask, like, should I run a suicide hotline or should I help? Like, just do it, because you're already a healer. You don't have to wait till you get your diploma. You could actually heal people today that are suffering all around you. And there are people in this very room who are suffering right now, and you could look around and help them. And so I have, because the predominant question last night after the film was, what could we do now as pre-med and medical students? So I have 5 things I want to suggest that you consider doing now. One is you can start what's called a warm line. I didn't know, but there's, hotline is like kind of more urgent. People are on the edge asking you, for help when they've got a gun to their head sort of thing. That's a little intense. But you could run like a warm line, which is basically, it's like you can put your number out there and let people know, hey, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here for you. I would suggest that you all reach out to at least 5 or 10 people in your class, maybe some people who are isolating themselves and don't seem to have a lot of friends or are not very extroverted, and just give them your phone number and say, hey, do you want to go out to tea? Do you want to hang out? I want you to know that I'm here for you, and you can call me anytime. It's not that hard to do this, and you could do this for your entire class. You could do it for 4 or 5 people. I'm doing it for the whole world, and it's actually really fun and healing, and I would suggest that you do that. The other thing is, like Robin said, I want you to stop abuse. As a healer, it is your job to stop human rights violations wherever you see it. And this is happening inside of medical education. There are human rights violations, sleep deprivation, sexual harassment, hazing. If you see any of that, it is your job to stop it as a healer. And so how do you do this without getting thrown under the bus yourself? I'm going to give you 2 examples. One, a pediatrician who's in his 60s was on the phone with me recently, and he told me that in his training there was a professor that every year would torment the students, would pick on people in the room who weren't doing anything wrong, and he was just, he was an abusive man. And so they decided as a class of students, because they had a president of the class and the class met, they decided that the next time he did that, they would do this particular thing, and this is what they did. He started provoking somebody who did not do anything wrong in the back of the room. The president of the class stood up and said, "We know nobody in the back of the room is being disruptive, and we are going to walk out of your class." And they all stood up, all 160 of them, and they walked right out of his class together. And they went straight to the dean's office, and they let the dean know, this is what's happening. That professor was fired, and they never saw him again. And that is how you handle bullying as a group. Okay, very effective. He couldn't believe that people aren't doing this now. It was like... Then the other thing, the reason why abuse can continue is that they're using the traditional divide and conquer technique, which is when they divide and conquer everyone and you're isolated, you have no power, or not as much power as if you're in a large group. So that's why it's so important for you all to stand up for each other. And so when there's pimping, and what that is somebody is standing there and they're looking, as the professor, for the weakest chain link, the person who's the most sensitive guy, who's most likely to cry, the woman who's, you know what I mean? And they pick on you until you start crying, and then everyone else like hovers away because they don't want to be the next one picked on. And they're usually asking like very random, weird questions that are not even irrelevant to anything. And so what you do if you're witnessing pimping is that you say, "Hey, I don't think I know the answer to that question either, do you?" And then everyone goes around and says, "I don't know the answer to that question," so that it doesn't give this person a chance to pick on one person as not having the answer. And then you say, "Well, maybe we'll all go look it up together." You know, you need to band together and not let anyone be separated and abused. The other thing is just in general, unite, befriend one another. I know of people in medical school who've died by suicide, and the cause was loneliness. They died of loneliness that led to suicide. You should not let anyone in your class die of loneliness, please. You don't want anyone in your class, their parents, to get a phone call at 3 in the morning that their child died of loneliness. That is something that you can do something about. And then just 2 more quick little things. What I did in medical school, they had us back in the day killing dogs as part of the physiology curriculum, which I couldn't believe. Now, I didn't ask about, I don't want to do this. I basically wrote a letter to the physiology professor. I said, I will not murder a dog as part of my, I will not do that. Well, he wrote me back and he said, yes, you will. You're already on Team 11B, and if you don't show up, and he tried to like strong arm me into it. And he also told me these are not experiments, they're experiences for which there is no alternative. Yeah, dehumanizing experiences are not something that should be happening in medical school curriculum. So anyway, I petitioned the dean. I started a petition out of the blue, collected a bunch of signatures, went to the dean, and basically said, I'm either going to drop out of medical school, or you're going to let me out of, I'm not going to kill a dog. And you know what he did? He diagnosed me with Bambi syndrome and let me out of it. So the point is, these are just all examples of acting and not asking. I did not ask, really, for the dean's permission. I told him, I will not do this dog lab, and he relented. The final thing that I'd like to say is I would like all of you, if you don't currently have one at your school, to have a mental health week. It's really fun. The students at Louisiana State University in Shreveport just had me there, and you know what? They didn't ask their school, could we have a mental health week? They told them, we're going to have a mental health week, and Dr. Weibel already agreed to come. So I would like to invite you all to let your school know that you're hosting a mental health week. Again, you can invite them to participate, but let them know you're going to do that with or without their permission, because it's very important that we help each other heal. And I know Robin Simon will love for you to screen her film there at your school. And I will tell you right now that I promise I will come to your school and help you lead your mental health week. So please write my name down, idealmedicalcare.org. You contact me. I will come to your school. We will bring the film. And there is just no reason not to move forward with this. So thank you. And I want to introduce one of my heroes, which is John, Deal, and Michelle. They are an amazing family, so much courage to share in their deepest grief with you, their beautiful son, Kevin.
Thank you. I'll just talk from here. Well, hello. This turnout's amazing. I'm so happy. You have no idea what it means to us to see so many people interested in our story and in this cause. See, Michelle and I understand that time is probably the most precious item any medical student has. Yet last night and again this morning, you chose to share some of that time with us to learn about an issue we think is very important. And just knowing that you're interested in the issue, that you want to know more about it, want to understand it, it gives us really great hope for the future state of medicine and the well-being of our healers. But something you might not know is it has a tremendously positive impact on not just our ability, but the ability of so many others to get through our healing process. A lot of us have had some pretty devastating things happen in our life, and just knowing that you're here really helps us heal, and we appreciate it. Now, I got to be honest with you, Michelle and I, we're not used to standing on a stage in front of so many people, and it's a bit overwhelming. You know, we're not doctors, not PhDs, and I imagine you'd have to dig pretty deep in our transcripts to find even a graduate level course we might have taken by accident. We won't admit it. See, we're just two average parents who have chosen to share our son's story in the hopes that anybody out there who might be having issues will feel compelled to reach out for help. Or if you see a loved one or someone you care about, that you will very lovingly and very kindly talk to that person and encourage them to get help as well. Because as you've seen and heard from so many great speakers, this truly is a matter of life and death. And we think it's just something very, very important to do. We are very deeply appreciative and deeply humbled that you would join us today for this. Michelle and I have a couple goals. One thing we want people to know is that we're not here to vilify medical schools or our practitioners. Quite frankly, we think we're the best in the world at what we do. But like any great machine, any great system, even any great computer program, they're all subject to the environment around them changing. And trust me, this environment has changed. And unless you upgrade, unless you make difference, I mean, you get an upgrade on your iPhone, every 3 weeks when you don't want one, like it or not, it comes in, right? It's time to upgrade this. We think this is an area that we think has been neglected for a while, but we still have great hope. And we don't want to scare anybody away from wanting to go in them. Is a very noble cause, but it can be done right, and it can be done where we all can have, a very happy life. Now, Michelle and I also get involved. One of the questions we get is, what do you really want out of this? Why are you just including physicians and med students? Well, the fact of the matter is, this is where our son dropped us off, right? And we really and truly believe he laid a path for us to follow this, to help others. Because I know if he were here, he would be up here right now. Excuse me. It's just the kind of person he was, right? But we also have a goal, we also have a vision to raise and get rid of the stigma of mental illness from everywhere, for everybody. Because that truly is the largest barrier keeping people from going out and asking for help. Nobody wants that label. I know my wife, Michelle, works very hard. In addition to scheduling us for any kind of speaking things like this, speaking engagements, which we're privileged to do. We feel absolutely privileged to do them. She also keeps us involved with NAMI and Out of the Darkness, which are two national organizations that provide resources and support for anybody who might have received a mental illness diagnosis. They also do research and development. I don't know about you guys, but when Dr. Collins flipped that picture of that brain up on the screen, my God, our hearts filled with hope. It was just really tremendous to think, wow, man, this could be the beginning of something really tremendous, right? But we also are very involved with a local organization called CHADS Coalition. And what CHADS is that they go into grade schools, middle schools, high schools, and colleges, and they talk about depression and anxiety. But not just to the students, but to the educators, the faculty, and some of the counselors. Because if they do see early warning signs, if they do see things that might tip them off, they also teach them how to very lovingly approach these students and their families and talk about the issue. And they also provide low or no-cost resources for these people to learn how to deal with this diagnosis. A lot of times it could be something temporary, nobody knows. But that's something that's very, very near and dear to our heart, and we do a lot of volunteer time with them. Michelle is nothing short of amazing in that area. So, as you saw in the film, if you saw the film or if you haven't guessed it, we're a very, very close family, all of us. And we loved our son, Kevin, very, very much. He was my best friend. And really, quite frankly, today and forever will be my true personal hero. Because excuse me, I'm a better man because of him. He used to share with us some of the things all you guys are going through and experiencing in med school. How isolating it can be. How difficult it is to be constantly studying, wondering if you got this application in on time, wondering if you picked the right rotation site or you're going, to the right residency. And it gets overwhelming. And I remember him saying one time, he said, Dad, sometimes when I get a minute, I want to check up on my buddies, right? I go on Facebook to see how they're doing because that's the life I remember as being normal. And he said, I never thought I'd be so envious of seeing these people do such mundane things as like going to the theater, taking in a ball game, having a couple beers, maybe taking an entry-level job or getting their first apartment. He said, I was talking with some buddies of mine here at school, and we thought, what would we write? How would our friends take it if we just took on another $70,000 worth of debt? Stayed up and pulled my second all-nighter this week to study for an exam, eating ramen noodles and free cafeteria food till my next disbursement comes in so I can pay the bills, do the laundry, and put some gas in the car. And he noticed that I was getting very concerned, and he said, dude, but please, don't feel sorry for us. See, we knew this. When we signed on the dotted line, we understood that we would be giving up our 20s and a whole lot of part of our 30s to become part of something that was much bigger than we were, with the intention of hopefully positively impacting the greater good of medicine. So don't worry about us, man. We are all freaked out. We are all depressed. We're being told this is normal. When Kevin died, life came to a standstill. I don't know what to tell you. And we had no idea how we were going to move forward, or really, quite frankly, if we really wanted to. But there is one thing we knew. It was an emotion that emanated from our heart, and it rang very loudly in our conscience, and it was almost immediate. We were not embarrassed, and we were not ashamed. And we were going to do whatever we could to keep this from happening to any other individual or any other family. Because this is really, really hard, right? I know if Kevin were here today, he would tell you that becoming a doctor should be hard. You are training and working very hard to become responsible for the health and well-being of many, many patients. What we're here today, what this movie is all about, is to make sure you look after your own as well. It's very, very important. When it comes down to it, though, I guess when you really think about it, this movie, all the great work Dr. Weibel does, Dr. Frederick you saw in the film with the bills, our speaking, these are just tools we can put in your toolbox. They're doors we can open, and we hopefully you'll be able to walk through. Because in the end, it's not about us, right? It's about so much more. For us, it's about Dr. Kevin Thomas Deal. And those who went before him, like Dr. Greg Madej, those who've gone after, like medical student Sean Petro. And that's the name, just so very, very few. It's about the brave people that you've seen in the trailer and the film, like Dr. Hawkins Meacham, Dr. Gregory Mims, and a doctor that you didn't see in the film, but his name is Dr. Boyce Fish, who in a very difficult time almost wound up leaving this world. But by the grace of God, they came back. And not only are they managing their issues, but they had the courage to step out into the light and say, hey, man, we've been there. We understand, and we want to help. But most of all, ladies and gentlemen, it's about you. Like Dr. Weibel said and Robin said, you are the ones who one day will be the attendings. You'll be in charge of groups. You'll be interacting with other people. All we're asking is that when you're there, that you remember what you saw and you heard here today, and that you will reach out to each other and you will support each other. And whenever you have an opportunity to, you'll do what you can to make positive change. Because I can think of no greater thing, no greater appreciation for life than to one day be invited to another seminar, to another conference. But this time, our chairs will be down there in the audience, and we'll get to sit down there and listen to what all you have done, the things you've been able to do to make medicine a better place. And when that happens, I guarantee you, we'll get another emotion emanating in our heart. But this time the message going to our brain will be, hey, we heard you. See, we got this, and we're rocking it. Thank you.
We are happy to take questions. You know, some of you may be saying, well, I'm not at risk. It's not going to happen to me. Well, let me tell you that it happens very quickly going into this dark place. I've spoken to hundreds of med students and residents and physicians, and they were shocked at how quickly they went from being a gold star student to contemplating ending it all. In my research and through my investigation, what was most disturbing was that it seemed like young doctors were set up to fail. You know, forced to work 80 to 100 hours a week, taking care of sick patients. And patients have changed. You know, when you hear your mentors and the older generation say, oh, well, I did it, so you do it, you know, tough it up, suck it up. That's what they say. And the reality is, medicine has changed in the last 10 years. It's changed a hell of a lot in the last 20 to 30 years. Patients are more complex. Patients are living longer than they ever had, and their conditions are much more complicated. Now, on top of that, it used to be, and when you see in the film, patients would go to the hospital, they would stay for 3 weeks when they had a heart surgery. They would spend a week after they delivered a baby. Now, those beds are turned over every day or two. So the acuteness of the conditions of that person in that bed is much greater, not to mention the electronic medical records that you have to do. 50 clicks, you know, to order, you know, one prescription. Doctors are spending 10% of their time with patients and the rest of the time fighting with insurance companies and, you know, filling out these electronic medical records. So medicine has changed tremendously. The level of fulfillment, that sense of fulfillment in a job decreases when you're not doing what you wanted to do when you started med school, which was take care of patients. So medicine has changed from when these older doctors went to med school, and that has to be acknowledged. So when you're working 80 to 100 hours a week doing scut work, and you're so tired, you're like drunk. Because at a certain point after 16 hours, when you are sleep deprived, it's like being drunk. And now you're told to go take care of this patient and then that patient, and you're so scared that you could hurt somebody or kill somebody. And that's a fear that every day you wake up with, set up to fail. That has to change. In the film, we learned that there used to be a 16-hour shift limitation, 80 hours a week. Well, most programs don't really follow that, even though there is this limit. But then in July, that cap for first-year residents, for interns, was increased from 16-hour shifts to 28-hour shifts. In the film, you'll hear from Harvard sleep experts, the top in the world, who say that after 16 hours, you're not functioning properly. So why would they do this? And the reason that they give is, well, you know, there's a danger in handoffs when you hand off from one doctor to another. And so that causes medical errors. So we want to improve that continuity of care. But that's ridiculous. What needs to happen is find ways to improve the handoffs, find ways to improve communication, not increase work hours, not go backwards when there were no work hour limits at all. That's not the solution. These two Harvard professors came up with a program called IPASS. It reduces the handoffs, sleep deprivation was minimized, and medical errors decreased. So there are solutions out there. Only 5% of the teaching hospitals integrated the IPASS program in their hospitals. Why? Why? Well, residents, as you know, don't get paid that much. They're cheap labor. So they want to work residents and get as much out of them as they can. And that's just the reality. So this is you guys in the future. What are you going to put up with? So let's take some questions.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, testing.
Testing. My name is Pratishta. I'm a second-year medical student at Lincoln Memorial University, DeBusk College of Osteopathic Medicine. I'd like to just start off by thanking the Deals so much for having the courage to share their story about Kevin today. As Kevin's peer, I am so thankful that we have advocates like you who have turned your pain into something so meaningful for us, and we thank you so much for doing what you've done. My question today is, as a medical student, you know, we're not oblivious to the red flags that we see in our peers. We notice things. We notice someone is unwell mentally or they're upset, and sometimes talking to them or offering, you know, to have someone to talk to is great and it works, but other times I've noticed people close themselves off even more when people get concerned, or even, you know, as a friend, if you talk to them, and they close themselves off from everyone. And I just want to know, what can I do when I see these signs and red flags to someone who is closing themselves off?
Well, thank you. And that's a very good question for all of us. Some people I know, you know, Kevin and a lot of other people would want to think, hey, I got this, I can handle it, you know, we're strong, I made it this far. But I do know that even going to them and talking to them, if they shut you off, don't give up, you know, and don't be annoying. I mean, obviously what a lot of people will do is say, oh, wow, this guy's showing weakness or this gal's showing weakness, and we're, boom, you know, I get ahead here, right? If you really and truly care, you'll go back and say, hey, you doing all right? It doesn't even have to be about what they're saying or doing, just communicating with them and letting them know someone cares. Because I know Kevin told us a couple times when he was having bad weeks, he had a friend that invited him over for a barbecue, and that was big. I mean, and make no mistake, folks, this could have happened to Kevin even if he was a trash hauler or won the lottery. We don't know. What we're here to say is that he was afraid to reach out for help. And that's what really, really concerns us. Does that help you a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one more thing, and I think hopefully with this film and getting the message out and starting the conversation about this, it will help improve the expectation that Kevin said. Everyone's depressed. My whole class is depressed. We're all anxious. We're worried about the next exam. We're depressed because we're not at the top of our class anymore. I mean, so many reasons why they felt down and depressed. And even speaking to his friends after his death, one of his best friends had a conversation with him, and Kevin said, my parents are worried about me. They think I'm having problems, that, I'm not right. And, what do you think? Do you think I'm having some mental health problems, whatever? And his buddy told us this afterward when we had dinner with him after our son passed away, and he said, I told him, yeah, Kevin, I do. I do think you're having some issues. We're all having issues, So I think that's another thing that needs to be addressed in medicine is like, this is not acceptable. This shouldn't be the norm. And peers to peers shouldn't think, well, I think there's something wrong with you, but it's okay because we're all the same way.
Right.
That's just got to change. So I appreciate your question, and thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Mary. I am from Florida Atlantic University, and this year I started an interest group called Mental Health in Medicine and Research. I am a survivor, and 6 years ago, I never imagined myself being here today with pre-medical medical students. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for making this apparent to the world, because a lot of people don't want to seek that help. I didn't, and I almost lost my leg too. Sorry. So, God, sorry. Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm great now.
Yeah, it's all right.
And I just wanted to say that although you did lose your son's life, he's still saving lives, and it's through both of you. So thank you guys for being brave enough and using this as a reason to save everyone else's lives, because mental health is just as important as physical health.
Absolutely.
100%. That is my motto for my group.
Thank you for sharing that.
And actually, March is our Suicide Awareness Month, and we are doing it Out of the Darkness Walk. But one of the biggest parts, or one of the biggest things in my, I'm sorry, I totally lost track. Okay. I'm not a good public speaker. Silence kills, and so we speak. So thank you so much for all that you do.
You're welcome. God bless you.
And I just want to say, as a patient, that doctors are human too, and doctors' lives and doctors' health are just as important as patients' lives. And you have to know that, and patients have to know that too. I don't think they think that. I think they feel that doctors are just robots. They just represent something. They're always supposed to be well. And of course we want our doctors to be strong because we're coming to them for a service. But if a system exists that doesn't allow you to take care of yourselves physically or emotionally, then it's bad for society. So you're just as important as the patients you serve.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Harris. I'm from Texas A&M University, and I wanted to, first of all, thank you guys, of course, for sharing such personal stories and for doing the work that you do. And I wanted to get some advice on being that advocate at my school or for my chapter or for the university, and how you guys take that weight and responsibility of hearing that every day, especially you, Dr. Weibel, with that's what you've made your life for the past 6 years or so, how you hear that every day, but don't let it get you down as well, hearing such stories and taking that and helping others, and especially for those who haven't experienced a friend or family member or been on the other side of suicide and had that personal connection.
So the question, how to stay well yourself if you're taking a leadership role in advocating for the mental health of the students at your medical school, and how do I stay well doing the suicide hotline? And I think it's because I go to therapy every week, and I really love it, and I look forward to it, and I actually prepay a year in advance, so I have therapy every single week, and I just want to compare our mental health to our dental health, okay? I think that's a good analogy. So we're all on a dental health maintenance plan. We all brush and floss at intervals, and we all go to the dentist probably every 6 months. And so that's just kind of a maintenance plan so that your teeth aren't falling out of your head. Now, if you might want to think about what are you doing as a mental health maintenance plan, because I think everyone on this planet needs a mental health maintenance plan. And if you're in a high-risk profession like firefighter, police, physician, you need more of a mental health maintenance plan than the average person walking down the street. And so I would like to encourage everyone in medical school to have a therapist. If you don't have a therapist and you need one, let me know. There are people that you can Skype with at all odd hours of the night that I can hook you up with so that you'll never be alone without somebody to help you. And one thing that I wanted to say, and I also, by the way, get massage almost every week. And I live in a beautiful place and I walk through the woods. I sing gospel songs even though I'm Jewish.
That's out of the question.
There are just a lot of things that I do that are uplifting, and weirdly, I know this might seem really strange, but a lot of the doctors who've died by suicide, the pictures all over my house, I talk to them, some of them talk to me. I mean, I get into like a spiritual zone, and I think if you can take yourself out of like the reductionist medicine, like if I save the patient, I'm a hero, if I don't, I'm a failure. I think if you can have the perspective of, there's a quote like, do your best and let God do the rest. Like really, don't hold yourself to such superhuman standards. Just be the best version of yourself every day, and that's all you can do, And the one thing I wanted to share is that I've been on the phone with so many physicians and medical students who've been suicidal, and a number of times people have mentioned, you know what? It's the colleagues and classmates that I have who aren't going to therapists who I really worry about. It's the doctors who are going to therapy that are actually healthier. So I think we need to kind of change the way we look at things. And, that's like going to the dentist and brushing and flossing. Good. Okay?
Very good.
I hope that helped.
Yes, thank you so much.
Go ahead.
So I'm Melissa Tanner. I'm a second-year medical student, and I saw the video last night and bawled my eyes out, basically. So I wanted to ask you, in the video it talked about that this isn't just in the USA, this is international. It's all around the world that, physicians are, committing suicide, and some places hide it more than others, and, that kind of thing. And so, you're talking about, sharing it with, the students and stuff, and coming to the schools, and does that include, these international schools and that kind of thing? Because sometimes, despite how much I'm in Mexico, that's the school I'm in, and like, although it's closer than, some of the other international schools, we might be like, despite how much we might want to feel included, we can't help but sometimes feel like, oh, I might not be part of that group.
Yes, we are planning an international film tour. What's happening now with the film is we're just finishing it up. We still have a few more things to do with the film, so it'll really be done the end of April. And then we'll start entering film festivals and talking to distributors. And also we're starting right now to launch a international film tour. So we have a partner in Asia where it's a huge problem. Mexico, we've heard from some people all over, Canada, Because it's interesting that, you know, although we have managed care and this assembly line medicine is a big part of the disillusionment, a lot of the suicide comes from the sleep deprivation and the bullying and the hazing that we see. So that combination, it doesn't matter, as you hear Pamela Weibel say in the film, it doesn't matter what pay system it is necessarily. When those two things are at play, sleep deprivation causes depression, and bullying, hazing, you know, when you're told you're not good enough and, you know, you're hurting people and you shouldn't be here, and then you have these grueling schedules, it doesn't matter. We have many suicide accounts in Canada, for example, that has socialized medicine. So while this managed care may exacerbate the problem and it does increase the level of disillusionment, it's not the sole cause of why we see so many suicides. So yes, we plan on bringing this around the world to medical schools, teaching hospitals, medical conferences, and eventually to allow schools to use this as a tool, as a teaching tool. We're talking to someone about having they're called CMEs, so you can actually get credit when you are doctors in a couple of years for sharing this film, and we'll have a discussion guide. So we have big plans for this film to make an impact for years to come, and we're so glad that you're part of the team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Levi Rolfe. I just want to thank you all again for taking on such a noble cause. There's an issue that's like very personal, like for me, and in my own personal experience, like being vocal about like my own issues was something that was hard for me as I was growing up. But once I got a little bit older, I recognized that being open about it was going to be the only way that I could receive any help. And it was really hard. Once I was open, a lot of people were very dismissive. And that's really tough when like you're trying to be vulnerable and people tell you like, no, that's not a real issue that you're having. And I've conquered that, and that's been great, but I wanted to know more about the pushback that y'all experience from the system itself. Like, I know how stigmatized mental health is. It's just, I can't believe that even in medicine that's something that still happens, where we have the group that should be the most educated on these types of issues, but I know from the film that you guys experienced, you know, the administration, you know, saying that like, no, this isn't that big of an issue, like this is how things are supposed to be done. It's like, why is that still happening? Like, why can we not overcome that? Like, once we hear and once we learn more about it, it's an issue that's so easy to get on the right side. Why do we have people that are still, you know, not handling this correctly?
You know, you would think that the medical community would hold itself to a higher standard because you're in medicine, but it's actually the opposite. And Hawkins Beacom, who's here, are you here, Hawkins? Where are you? Oh, okay. Get up. He's the star of the film, and we're so happy he's here. But I didn't put this in the film, but Hawkins, I don't know if you remember what you said to me when he was feeling suicidal, and he shared this with his primary care physician, and his doctor told him, that's selfish. That's selfish. You're going to be a doctor. Selfish of you to think about suicide, you know, and hurt your family, hurt your future patients. And what did he do? He went home, crawled up in a ball, and cried in a fetal position for hours. I mean, that's not the kind of care that doctors should be giving to someone, even if they are a doctor themselves, you know, when they're crying for help. So we have to stop that. It's not selfish.
To answer your question, I think the reason why we get the response that we get from some of the more resistant elements in medical institutions is because of shame, and also because of some guilt, because they really have set up the circumstances that have led to like 10,000 plus body bags of doctors over the years. And I don't think they really want to take account of what they've participated in. Of course, the solution right now is not really demonizing anyone, but we do need people to come clean and recognize these are systemic human rights violations. FYI, I don't use the term burnout. I'm really against the term burnout because burnout is a victim-blaming term that blames and shames an individual who's been up for 28 hours on a shift for being defective and inefficient, which is really not the case. The case is the system has set you up to fail. And so I really do feel like the word burnout it's like, it's counterproductive, because we really need to not use these sort of trash can diagnoses and labels. What we need to do is identify with precise terminology what's really happening, which is that these beautiful, highly intelligent people, you all are in the top 1% of compassion, intelligence, and resilience in the country. You don't need another resilience class. You're already the most resilient. You came in with compassion, so you don't need to have that beat out of you and then a multiple choice test on empathy on the way out to see if you can show you have a good empathy score. You know what I mean? So I think if we can just get to the foundational elements that are causing harm to you all wonderful people on the way in, we will have like amazing physicians and better health care for everyone.
I do want to add that, look, because medicine is what it is today, this culture with managed care, you do need some training to just navigate into this world. So you need both. You need to stop the abuse. At the same time, you do have to live in the system that's not really going to change that much, managed care and, dealing. It will, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge that that's what we're dealing with right now. So I do believe you need both, but not the kind of resiliency training that we see too much of and that we roll our eyes about, like, smile and, take a swing class. You don't have time to do that when you're working 80 to 100 hours. So those aren't the kinds of things that you need. You need something much more thoughtful and much more strategic in helping you cope with the system that we're in, at the same time ending the abuse.
Hi, my name is Perry Tsai.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Right quick, I was trying to find a good interjection point. This will be our last question, unfortunately, but there will be a book signing up in the exhibit hall, and there will be books that are for sale beside the book signing.
We'll be out there to answer any questions. We'll stay in the hall.
Yeah,
Anybody
we are
wants to talk
all
to
going to
us?
stay out in the hallway, and we will answer. I'll stay up till 2 in the morning with you, whatever you need.
She will.
Yeah, so.
Barry, I got to hear from you a minute.
Yeah.
It's a world-class jacket, dude. I want to get your tailor's name. I'm serious. I
here.
could never make it look as good as you do. I would be
appreciate that.
styling. I'd be #1 in the nursing home, I swear to God.
That is a pretty cool combo.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Perry Tsai. I'm a graduating medical student at UNC Chapel Hill. I'm also the president-elect of AMSA, so I'm the upcoming president for next year. And I want to thank y'all for coming. I want to let you know that I am with you and AMSA is with you 100%.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
no doubt. We have a strong history of advocating for a lot of the issues y'all are talking about, such as resisting extending those residency work hours. We have a Wellness and Student Life Action Committee. We even have a member benefit that's a free month of therapy from BetterHelp. Anything we can do to tackle this. I appreciate all your stories, and what I want to know more about is, with your conversations, all the research you've done, all the advocacy you've done, what are the glimmers of hope that you're seeing? Do you think we're reaching a tipping point? Do you think that change is coming? Where do you think that AMSA can continue to apply pressure and really make a change come as fast as possible? Thank you.
That's a really good question. When Michelle and I started down this path, first met Dr. Weibel and Robin and Dr. Frederick, in our minds, we're realistic, right? We thought we'd be long gone from this earth before anything would change. And we are so encouraged by what we're seeing. It's really amazing. We we will go to speak at any medical school or anybody who is kind enough to invite us because we think the message is important. And even at WashU Medical School in St. Louis, which is probably one of the toughest schools to get into and get through, right? And they have established literally a hotline you can call anytime, day or night. If you're having issues, you want to talk, and it truly is confidential. AT Still, it's our son's alma mater, they have put probably about 3 times the budget. They tripled their budget to help students who might be having an issue like this. They've established a mental wellness and just a wellness week. And the dean, when we go to speak, stands right by our side and encourages the students to talk to one another, to reach out. Matter of fact, the reason she asked us to come up was because the students were still afraid. You know, I can't have this happen. So when they do reach out to the counselors that are available, and it is anonymous, there is no record kept of it on any kind of medical record, these people, they follow up with them when they go to their 3rd and 4th year because it's a whole new experience in your 3rd and 4th year, right? So yes, we are seeing some really, and Lee, of course you saw with Dr. Slavin, I don't know if you saw the film last night, but Dr. Slavin at SLU implemented a program which took anxiety from 60% clinical anxiety, 30% clinical depression, and he changed the curriculum. Very, very simple curriculum change. Costs, I think he said it costs like, $15,000 for everything. And I want you guys to think about what you're spending. $4,000? Yeah, $4,000. And now that's not per person, that's for the whole damn program, right? And within 7 years, he brought that down to 14% anxiety and 4% depression, and board scores went up. And for that effort, he was recognized very widely for what he did, and right before they fired him from SLU, okay? He had the courage to stand up, he made changes, but that seed's planted, man. It's in all of you now. You understand, you know what to do, right? And you know how to spread the message, but we are seeing some great, great help. You want to say something?
I just wanted to mention that this year, the American Association of Osteopathic Physicians, at their annual conference in DC some months ago,
right.
The theme of their conference was physician wellness, and they had several sessions on mental wellness, and they've also started a task force, which we've been invited to participate in. We've had one conversation with them, but they are really taking this seriously, and like John said, we didn't think we'd see this in our lifetime. I mean, it takes generations to change the culture. This has been a problem for so long. But we're really encouraged by the fact that they're stepping up to the plate and recognizing it's a problem and trying to do something. And they talked about following the osteopathic community, following these physicians from day one of medical school till they retire. So they're really into it for the life of their physician. So it's really kind of encouraging.
Thank you for that. I totally forgot about that. You can Yeah, it was very encouraging. The DO programs, I think we're more in tune with because Kevin was in DO. But there's probably a lot more going on at EMD. Look, we're at AMSA talking to you guys, right? We were invited to the American Osteopathic Association of Orthopedic Surgeons, Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons in 2016. They dedicated 4 hours to this subject.
Yeah, there was one doctor who said it was the first time in 30 years he had been going to these conferences, the first time there was a seminar on resiliency. So we are seeing change, and we're excited about it. We're excited to be a part of it, and we really appreciate this opportunity from AMSA to share this with you. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.